Welcome to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher, where we take you behind the scenes with peak performers to learn what makes them tick and discover how you can apply their lessons to your life. I'm your host, Molly Fletcher. Meet Mama Jan. She's a Grammy-nominated producer and vocal coach to the stars, working with chart-topping artists like Usher, Justin Bieber, the band Perry, Rob Thomas, Drake, Sugarland, and Collective Soul. In all, over 4,000 vocalists, musicians, and producers have turned to Mama Jan and Jan Smith's studios for her tough love training and musical expertise. Named one of the top 100 women in the music business by Billboard, Mama Jan says her purpose in life is helping others shine. On today's episode, she shares how she evaluates talent, the importance of having a coach, and how she's able to deliver tough feedback to some of the biggest stars around. You guys ready to rock? Here's my conversation with Mama Jan. So, Mama J, right? Mama Jan is what they call you. I think Usher named you that. Isn't that right?
Well, Usher didn't really name me that. He's the one that took that name public.
Got it.
Of his viability to the public. But I had John Hopkins of the Zac Brown Band is the first person who actually started calling me Mama J.
And so do you go by Mama Jan, Mama J?
Either or.
All right,
or
cool.
Hey You.
Hey you, you're so cute. All right, well, we'll get started. But so you began in the music industry as an artist, and you evolved into a vocal coach and have worked with, just for our listeners to hear, some of the most incredible names in music, Usher, Justin Bieber, and a whole lot more, I know. But tell me a little bit about the story of kind of how you went from an artist to a coach.
I would like to tell you that was almost by accident, but I don't believe in accidents. I think God just had different designs on my life. But the truth of the matter is, I said yes to helping somebody, and that grew into a business. But as you suggested, I started out as a kid who heard in color, so I was always making up songs and singing, and really started getting serious about music when I was about 9 years old, and then cut my first record when I was 15. Started playing in bands and clubs and things like that by the time I was 16, 17 years old, and that was always my dream and my goal, even though I went to college and got a degree in psychology that fed my face for several years.
Yeah, you said your daddy. You said your daddy said that's happening. We're going to school. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Dad, education was very important in my family, and so being educated was part of it. And I'm thankful that I have the degree because it did allow me to work as a psychologist for several years when music didn't support me. But I was really always, seeking that brass ring myself and going after the career of being an active musician, an artist, and a songwriter. When I said yes one day to a guy that ran a rock guitar school and had a client that was losing his voice, and from there, other people needed my help because the rock and roll, R&B, and rap community was not really being serviced by any kind of coaching or anybody who could speak in their vernacular, so to speak, and then coach them. So that's kind of how it started off about 33 years ago. Wow.
And I would think, Mama J, you felt fulfilled when you helped your first sort of guy with that gap that he had, that challenge that he had. And so have you felt and evolved to believe that there's more fulfillment for you personally in helping others sort of achieve their dreams as a musician than doing it yourself? You obviously are incredibly gifted yourself.
Well, I appreciate that, and I still remain active in my own music, obviously. But it's kind of cool, Molly, because the process of working with other people is still creative to me, and then also the aspect of creating business and growing a business and connecting dots and doing things in the music community. It's all still creative, and so I thrive in that. But the greater purpose, honestly, is helping other people. You ask if I felt fulfilled, and I do, because not only is my artist heart satisfied, but I'm also really able to see the change that I've been a part of in somebody. They understand more. I believe that knowledge is power, and the application of that makes all of us more successful. So not only have I learned in that exchange, but I'm teaching other people who are then better because of that. It's pretty cool, and I get paid for being who I am, so I don't really know any greater luxury than that.
Yeah, well, no question. And I would imagine that your psychology degree comes in pretty handy, doesn't it? Because I am sure there is a lot of stuff that happens other than sort of the vocal coaching, and I know you support the people that you work with in so many ways. Tell me a little bit about how that's come into play and helped you serve them even better, it sounds like.
Well, you know that yourself. You're in sports entertainment, so you I'm sure have walked many of the same roads I have with helping to sort through the different personalities of people. Just in general, people are different, and sometimes they're difficult, and sometimes they're crazy. Let's be honest. Sometimes people are nuts. So being able to have a grasp on different personality types and understanding behavior and learning within that how to get done what I need to do to help people without necessarily trying to fix them is a real delicate balancing act, but it is something that we do as those people who speak into the lives of others. Again, I'm sure you know plenty about this, and I'm helping to manage not just the people, but all the stuff that goes on around the artists that we work with and the athletes and the people in the industry. It's a lot of moving parts. So being able to swim through that, I call it the Shawshank, but being able to swim through that basis really provides for the opportunity for me to use my psychological background for sure.
Oh my gosh, I can only imagine. And I would imagine there's some tough love that has to happen sometimes that you have to sort of dish out, if you will, right, in order to sort of keep these guys straight and squared away as they progress through what is, I know, a challenging. How does that work, and how do you deliver tough feedback to some of these guys that probably have pretty big egos, I would imagine?
Large, the largest egos on the planet. You know what? There's two answers to that. The first answer is the truth works. Good, bad, or indifferent. I think that, the truth works and you don't have to repeat yourself or go backwards on it. So I think that, and I hate to say this, but even if it makes somebody, stomp out of the room, or they even if they don't want to maintain their relationship with me past that point in a working service manner, it's okay with me because I think the truth works. I think the second thing is my clients know that I say what I say in truth and to help them. If they choose not to, go with that advice, that's okay. That's their choice, and they have that choice. So there's no judgment in that for me. But I'm going to tell them the truth and be honest with them. And because they have so many people telling them things that might not be true, because people are enamored with their celebrity or whatever they think that is, I think they tend to trust me because they know that I'm going to kind of shoot them straight. If I say they're good, and they know it. Sure. If I say you suck, they know they suck. And there's some things we need to work on. So.
Well, and I would imagine now with your, client list of folks that you've worked with, when someone walks in and you tell them they're great, they believe you. And when you tell them they suck, they believe you because of your track record and your client list. But tell me this, how at the beginning, right, with an Usher, a Bieber, how did you create the trust for them to embrace the tough feedback and for them maybe to create the change that you wanted them to make or believe that they needed to make to be great?
Generally speaking, when people were referred to me early on, and even still, they're not coming to me because everything's going great. They are. It's kind of like you don't necessarily go to a doctor when you're feeling good, unless you're just getting a checkup. You're going to a doctor because something's wrong. I don't feel good. I've got something that I'm worried about. Something's up. I might need to get this checked out. Somebody needs to look at this. So when people are referred to me, they're in some sort of distress or trouble, vocally speaking, or having some kind of change that they don't understand and don't have time to deal with because the pressure is on them. So I'm the person. I think that my initial relationship is different because they need me. I don't need them, so to speak. Now, it also comes down to I better know what I'm doing, or I better have some pretty good ideas. Otherwise, I'm not going to be worth my salt. So I've had to learn a lot on the run and had to educate myself and really shore up my own knowledge. But that therein lies the power of that, because the more you know, the more you can kind of assess another person's circumstances and begin to understand what they need to do, and therein lies the trust.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and you started working with Justin Bieber before he became famous, and you were on the road with him during kind of his first tour.
True.
So,
uh-huh.
Yeah. So what was it like watching him go through so many highs and lows and sort of this superstardom and really for the first time? And how did you, I can imagine that, I remember as an agent, I used to say to my guys, look, 90% of what we do and what I do is help you, navigate your career. 10% is negotiating your contract, right? So I don't know if it was like that with Bieber, right? I mean, 10% is helping him with everything, but I would imagine you were going through puberty with him, right?
Absolutely. And had done that with Usher, his mentor prior. It's a difficult world to inhabit, period. The entertainment industry and success therein. And again, you know this, when someone's career really takes off, it's nothing short of being hit by a Mack truck. It's so fast and so big, and things are moving. You're literally running to keep up. And if you can, stick a 12 or 13-year-old kid in the middle of that who is from a small town in Canada and doesn't know anything about that, it's incredibly overwhelming. And then let's put that on steroids with you going through the biggest, physical and emotional changes really of your whole life. You're going through puberty in front of the whole world.
Right.
Quite literally.
Sure.
And there was no other artist until his time that had greater international exposure on a daily basis because of social media. So it was hard, Molly.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
very, very hard. It was hard on him. And here he is trying to be a kid in the middle of it. Bless his mother's heart. She got hit by the same truck. I mean, she was trying to keep her balance as a parent, trying to do what was right for her son, trying to usher in this, excuse the pun, usher in,
right,
but,
right.
Trying to deal with the success and all of it and people wanting her attention too. It's hard. It was hard, I'll be honest.
How did you, is there a moment or a story when you look back at that time with him that comes up for you that you really had to really have a heart-to-heart with him? I'm sure there were many that you can share where you really coached him through something or helped him see something that maybe at his young age he wasn't seeing. Anything like that come up?
Yeah. I think the biggest one of those is probably the most well-documented one in the movie Never Say Never, which was true, and it was true to life. It was documentary footage of what was going on during that tour. His voice was going down, and it was partially due to changes. It was partly due to the expectations and the utilization, and him not really being a world-class vocal athlete yet, or having the conditioning to be thrown into the Olympics of our industry, so to speak. So he was getting hoarse, and we had a big shoot coming up and a movie that was being shot, and I had to put him on 36 hours of vocal rest, and that meant also pulling the plug on a sold-out show. That show was the New York State Fair show, and there were 17,000 people who were not real happy about it. But we had to cancel a show. And as an artist myself, I can tell you, I've been sick as a dog and had a fever of 103 and still stood behind the microphone and sang a gig because you just don't want to cancel the show.
Right.
You don't want to pull somebody and bench them for the season. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, for sure.
But at least in the sports world, if somebody tears an ACL or something, they are benched. In the music world, we wrap you up and say, get back out there and do it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Canceling a show is a really hard thing to do, and I had to do that and explain it to Justin that this was the better decision, and we either canceled one show now or we were going to have to cancel 6 or 7 shows later. And I gave him a choice and said, which one do you want to do? Those are your choices. Mm-hmm. And he chose one show. So he had to learn a really hard thing.
Yeah, early on and young. What was he, 12 or 13 then?
I think he was 14 at that point, yeah.
Okay. You use the term vocal athlete, which obviously I think is cool. I think everyone can benefit from a coach in all areas of our lives. And you see
Agreed.
the best artists in the world have, if they're blessed enough, Mama J. How do you describe your role kind of with the celebrities that you have worked with, and even with sort of not the ones that have made it yet, what does that sort of process look like for somebody when they come in and get the opportunity to be with you?
I think the first thing, well, my role is to assess, number one. Anytime anybody comes into Jansen Studios, and not just with me, but in any one of my staff, we do a basic assessment to kind of figure out, who you are, where you're at in the process, what do you want to do, and what the issues are. That gives us a blueprint to work with so that we know how to put our hands around somebody's throat, so to speak. But mostly it's about assessing where they're at, what somebody's wanting to achieve, and then figuring out the best method or road to get them there. And it is very much like LeBron James has a coach, Usher has a coach. Any great athlete knows that someone who can kind of give them a different perspective and watch them from the outside and then give them pointers is always going to make them, their game better, tighter, more efficient, more proficient. And so I see my role as being exactly that when it comes to the vocalists that I work with, and I train them that way. Starting on the physiological level, what's going on with your body, what are you eating, what are you drinking, what are you rubbing into your belly and you're sucking up your nose. It's all of that stuff because it affects the overall conditioning of my athlete. And then getting into more of the emotional, aesthetic, and developmental and presentation issues, and breaking it down from there. But even in the studio when I'm doing production, it's the same kind of thing. It's like, okay, what do you want to hear happen? And how can I best help to orchestrate that?
Mm-hmm. And one of the artists that you've worked with, of course, that many people know is Usher, who's sustained such an incredible career and obviously sustained incredible success. How have you kind of helped him navigate his career when you think about your role in his life as a coach? How have you helped him do that? It changes. It changes because of the growth of the artist and the athlete and where they are in their process. When Usher first came to me when he was 17 years old, he had already won a Grammy at the age of 13. So he was, quite a noted artist as a young singer, and quite a gifted singer. He is literally the best vocal athlete I've ever worked with. And I've worked with many, but he's up there. But Usher, his voice was changing late. He went through puberty late. So navigating that in a career that was already established was really tricky. And then getting him to the other side of that, then it became an issue of, okay, how do we not only sustain you as an artist and a star, but how do we improve your game and raise the bar? So from the time that I worked with him with 8701 and kept him stabilized during that tour to Confessions, what we did is broke down his process, and he really began to learn theory and things, because Usher was always really fast, doing riffs and runs, but he wasn't always accurate. So we brought the accuracy to the table, and when he was fast and accurate at the same time, that really, raised his bar from a performance perspective, and then recorded Confessions. So the benchmark album of his entire career happened after that, and it was notable improvement. And therein, kind of lied part of my work. And then it's been a process of him growing and changing and evolving and maturing. So he comes in now when he needs my help or calls me up, like when he was singing recently with Bocelli. That was a big ask for him to stand on a stage with a vocalist like Bocelli, which was very different. And so he wanted me to help him with Amazing Grace, interestingly enough, which is one of my favorite songs. Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
So I was able to help him with that, and it was just a different evolution of how he was using his own artistry with another great artist.
And so how do you decide who to work with, right? Because, I would assume your phone rings.
We stay busy. You know what? I have a great team of people. Nobody does anything alone, and I have a great team of people that most of whom have been either clients of mine or people I've mentored into teaching positions. And I have a great administrative assistant who kind of filters through the calls and kind of helps to decide where somebody's at in their process, and if my skill set is necessary, then those people, those development clients, and those coming in from labels, obviously any national artists and touring artists are going to come to me. And then those developmental artists that labels bring in, I'm working with most of those. then doing my own development, my own production studio as well with some of the cherry-picked people who come through.
And does it help you that you still, do gigs, right, and perform? And I mean, does that help you connect with the people that you work with?
It keeps me honest.
Yeah, okay.
It does, I think, because number one, they know that I walk my walk, and I am still an artist, and I started as an artist, and without that, I wouldn't have the credibility that I have with them. My artists know that I know how to stand on a stage and hold an audience in my hand, and also that singing and performing at the age of 61 is still important to me. I did a gig this past Mother's Day and to a sold out crowd, and I don't do that often because I'm not really, chasing that brass ring anymore, but I love to perform, and I love the interaction and the authenticity of that, because that's where it all started for me. So yeah, I think there's credibility in that. Yeah, I do.
And, if you had to pick or think about, right, one artist that you're so proud of what you guys have accomplished together, who would that be, right? And I'm not sure Usher or Bieber listen to this podcast, so, I'm just kidding. But who would that be if you thought about, and there can be more than one, right? I'm sure that you've got some really remarkable stories. But what comes up for you?
You know what? It's easy to be reliant on those names and faces that people recognize, the Ushers, the Biebers, the Indy Aries, the Jill Scotts, the Van Perry, the Monica's, the whatever. And that list goes on. And I'm so humbled and grateful that we have the reputation of serving the largest number of charting artists ever. But I'm humbled by that. But to be honest with you, watching people work hard on a day-to-day basis, people who may never have that opportunity to be at that level, it's an amazing thing to see determination in people who really try so hard to accomplish something. I had a woman who came in one time, and she worked in the music industry, not as an artist, but as one of the primary support teams, and she worked for a major label. And her husband also worked in the entertainment industry and was going to be celebrating his 30th birthday. And she knew that a whole lot of people in the industry and singers and artists were going to be there. And she also really sang very poorly. She wasn't completely tone deaf, but it was pretty close. I'll be honest with you. She worked for almost, not quite a full year, almost a year with me to really be able to hear and delineate pitch and to condition her voice so that she could sing Happy Birthday, because she was going to have to lead the singing of Happy Birthday for her husband's birthday party in front of all of those people. And she was absolutely mortified. And I want you to know it was a very humbling thing that week after week, watching somebody struggle to do something that I so took for granted because I've been, hearing in color my entire life. This woman worked so hard and so diligently, week in and week out, to be able to hold pitch to lead Happy Birthday for her husband's 30th birthday party. And she was successful, and it worked, and that was it. I mean, I didn't work with her after that. That was what she came in here for. That was the goal, and it took a considerable amount of time because she did not have the natural gifts to work with. I was completely impressed by that and have been humbled by it ever since. Wow.
That's a great story because it meant so much to her. I sure hope her husband noticed the difference.
Oh, and you know what? And all the people in the room.
Were they blown away?
Oh, well, they weren't blown away because it wasn't really an artist performance. She just didn't want to embarrass her husband or herself in the industry. So it worked and it was good. And that's the kind of stuff that, when you know that you're helping somebody do something that's so important to them. They may not, sell out Madison Square Gardens. They may not go on a world tour. They may not ever stand on the stage in front of more than 50 people. But when I watch somebody's eyes light up the first time they hear their voice recorded, it's an amazing thing. Oh, it never gets old. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, people will sometimes, Mama J, say, Melly, what's the most rewarding contract you've ever negotiated? And I got to tell you, I mean, it's the guy that needed 10 more days in the big leagues to get his retirement for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
It's not the $52 million. That's not.
Yep.
Right? It's the lives that you change, big or small. That's cool. Let me ask you this. In the sports world, right, we see athletes that have so many natural gifts, and then some of them make it and some of them don't. And then you see athletes that are fairly gifted, and, again, some of them make it and some of them don't. But in the music space and with an artist, I mean, I'm sure you get people that are just naturally just really gifted. And then you get some that aren't as naturally gifted, but will give it the work. For maybe a parent that's listening, right, and they have a child that's singing, and I mean, how much of a gap can you close on someone that's, you know what I mean, that isn't tone deaf, right, but they're not amazing naturally. They're not a Carrie Underwood maybe as or an Usher per se. How does that work, and is that possible?
It is. I mean, I think that anybody can advance on what, if they're not tone deaf. If somebody's tone deaf, that's something you're born with, and it's like it is a form of deafness. People who are truly tone deaf are not. They're not just people who sing bad. They literally can't hear the difference. Then there are a lot of people who just sing bad. So
that's me, by the way, Mama J. That's me.
Hey, I know a good vocal coach.
I bet you do.
No, I think that it's about, again, assessing where somebody's at and reaffirming for them the reality of, okay, this is where you are, this is where you might want to be, but okay, let's work on where you are and make you better. So that's the first thing, and helping people to set their sights realistically on what happened. I don't make people stars, Molly. I work with a lot of them, and I help a lot of them maintain where they're at, but I don't make them stars. When Martha goes to the Kmart and buys 9 million copies of an album, that's what makes somebody a star. I don't have control over the public and public consumption or what becomes trendy. Sometimes I don't understand it because, I grew up, I was 18 years old opening for, Bonnie Raitt and Governor McClinton and people like that. So music to me has changed drastically in my career. And I've had to embrace that change and look at what it means, to the commercial market. But at the end of the day, you nor I can really give an explanation for why this athlete or this artist over somebody else who might have, A, been more deserving, B, be more talented, C, has more whatever. For whatever reason, the public responds to something and it becomes the thing that we know as celebrity or stardom or fame. And within the confines of that, then we all kind of function on the, some people really kind of are naturally, I was born with a natural gift. I could have been an architect or a plumber or anything else, but I ended up being a singer because I had gifted ears past what most people have. Now, in the course of that, my own career, and I did really well and had a good run, but I never really made it over the top the way that my heart said I would when I was younger. God has clearly used me in the capacity I'm in, and I'm okay with that. And there are people who come in here who have huge careers that are much less singers than I am now. That has nothing to do with anything as far as me helping them be better. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. No question. No question.
And, I also believe God has me where he wants me, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'd be doing something different, so I'm good.
Yeah, you are good, Mama J. I know that. Let me ask you that. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing this space right now? For artists that have made it, for artists that maybe haven't made it, but what's the biggest challenge right now out there for these guys and gals?
Wow. Good question. Social media has really changed the playing field for music and artists, and also the notion that music is expendable to the average American and human being. Mm-hmm. Music is not expendable, and if we continue to make it so, we're going to lose part of our culture, and then that says a lot about us as a civilization. But that's a whole nother topic. The truth of the matter is, I think being able to swim the Shawshank and swim through the plethora of people who think that they are artists when they kind of aren't. And everybody wants to be, so there's a whole lot of work going on. And being true to your art, I think people get lost and sidetracked in all the other junk that goes on instead of really pursuing, their artistry in it. and it gets diluted because of that. So that's kind of the hardest part of the commercialization of art and commerce colliding, I think, and mixing it in social media, and that becomes a nightmare. But I think the other thing, honestly, is keeping people balanced as people, because our industry offers a lot of recreational exit, and people too oftentimes get caught up in places that they can't get out of. And unfortunately, we lose a lot of great creatives because they are people who color outside of the lines, and they are people who they go past the barriers sometimes. So helping to keep people grounded and sustainable is really a challenge.
How do you do that? I mean, you obviously are a voice of reason, and you're someone these guys and gals trust.
Mm.
I mean, I know you do it through being honest. I know you do it through being authentic. But what are some of the other things that you do? And maybe it's just that. I mean, which is obviously enough. But how do you keep them squared away?
I've made a lot of bad choices in my life. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've been humbled many a time. And after enough of that, you begin to keep yourself kind of steadied when people start throwing junk at you. And I think that my spiritual grounding, which hasn't always been true, it was from a child. My parents, raised me up in a Christian home, but having a belief system that grounded me again in my adult life was a huge part of me being able to continue being an authentic voice of reason. Learning from my own mistakes and not repeating them is a valuable teacher. And being honest in that, being able to claim that in front of people and say, you know what, hey, here's what I've done, here's what I didn't do, here's what the outcome of that was, and here's what I'd suggest for you. Not judging people, understanding that we are all so unique and everybody has the right to make their own decision, my advice, but not letting it, be something that I whip people with, rather encourage them. And if they make mistakes, it's okay that we recover from that and we come back from that and we learn from that. Offering the knowledge that I have, and hopefully the greatest thing is really, truly, truly loving people no matter, and loving what I do, because there is no greater thing than that. And that and my 88-year-old mother keep me honest. So there you go.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No question. I mean, when you come from a place of love, when you're given direct feedback, I think it's received better. That's for sure.
Usually. Yeah.
Usually
yeah. It is. Yep. Yeah. Yep.
How do you stay sharp, Mama J? I mean, how do you stay on your game? What are some of your daily rituals that you do?
You know what? I believe in taking care of my machine, my body. I've had to learn that the hard way. But diet and exercise, man, I'll tell you, I'm 61 years old, and my mind has to stay sharp. My body has to be on go all the time. I have to be able to run around and keep up with, the 14 and 18 and 21-year-old artists that I work with. And there's no time for me to lag behind. So I think that being in front of that, like I said, walking my walk, if I'm going to tell other people, hey, you need to drink more water, hey, you need to check out juicing, hey, you need to eat more vegetables, hey, you need to be organic, hey, here's why, stop putting sand in your gas tank, let's improve this, let's do some jumping jacks. If I'm going to say that to them, I better be exemplary of that. So I'm not perfect, but I sure do my best to make sure that I'm an example of that.
Mama J, we end every episode with what we call a rapid fire section. So I'm going to fire some questions off and you just be real, which is easy for you.
I'm ready.
I love it. All right. So one word to describe yourself.
Authentic.
What's your theme song? If you had to have a theme song.
Amazing Grace.
Nice. What's the last book you read?
The book I'm still reading, the Bible.
Nice. And is that your favorite book, I can assume?
It's definitely a reference book. I read other ones, but that's Kisses from Katie is one I'm reading now because I just got back from Africa, and she runs an orphanage in Uganda, so that's one I'm reading right now.
I know, I saw your pictures. They're
yeah. Yeah.
Who's an artist that you don't work with that you'd love to work with?
Wow. But Beyonce comes to mind just because. There's a lot of those actually, but she's probably, I would work with her voice. It'd be awesome.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
The truth works. The truth works.
What's your favorite sort of perk of the job, right? What's your favorite perk?
I get paid for being who I am. Are you kidding?
I love that.
And it's also, I have to stop sometimes and pinch myself just because, it's kind of odd. It's like being on airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
People say, what do you do for a living? I just kind of say, I'm a janitor. I clean vocal toilets because nobody's going to believe me. Nobody's going to believe me if I say, I just finished working with Shania Twain. I'm flying home to work with Usher, and then the next day I'm going to, talk to Keisha Cole, and Carly Simon called me up on the phone, and who can believe that? I don't believe it, but it's true.
Yeah. Well, not to mention, by the way, then you'd spend, however long the flight is, having to answer questions from some random.
That's why I don't talk about
it. I remember my ball players used to say when they'd go to the bar and meet people, they would say, "Yeah, no, I'm a plumber," and they'd go, "Oh, wow." Okay. And so they wouldn't tell them that they were making $10 million a year as a pitcher. What's one thing that's on your bucket list, right, that you haven't done yet that you want to do?
Wow, I just went to Africa, and that was on my bucket list. I'm gonna go back again. I've got a little girl that I sponsor there, and it was amazing to meet her and to it's just amazing. There are other places that I want to travel to, places I haven't been, I have to say this because I grew up dreaming, and I still have this in my heart. I've always dreamed of winning a Grammy, and at this point, as an artist, I probably never will. But a lifetime achievement or something like that, it would be a pinnacle for me to bring a piece home. It would. Yeah. I have to say that.
I think that's probably a pretty real dream.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What advice would you give your younger self?
Ooh. I think humility goes a long way. For a while, I was pretty arrogant and puffed up in myself because I was that kind of singer, and I cleaned up the singer that I could. So I think that pride is definitely one of the 7 deadly, and I think humility goes a long way.
What do you think it was that unlocked that for you, that made you help you see that and create a shift?
That's a whole nother podcast, but you know what? It was life circumstances for me and some choices that I made that were not smart that landed me in a place of humility that was kind of undeniable, and it was by my own choice and my own doing. So dealing with that and God's redemption therein, and me being able to live on the other side of that grace definitely brought in a perspective of humility that I will not get very far from ever again.
Good for you. That's cool and powerful. Last question. What brings you your greatest joy? My 88-year-old mother.
Oh. And her resilience. We lost my daddy in 2010 and just the Beiber tour kicked off, and my mother, she lived through the Great Depression. Her and my daddy, they grew up very poor, and she is such a freaking remarkable human being. And I learned so much. She's very cognizant at 88 and quite the whippersnapper. She still lives at home by herself. She still cooks 3 meals a day. She, drives herself to get her hair done, and she goes to church every Sunday and every Wednesday. And I love her so much that I've learned from her. I've learned love of life and the simplicity of it, and I'm grateful beyond measure to have had both the parents I had, but my mother has shown the resilience after 62 years of marriage to my precious daddy. She lives her life. My mother lives her life every day and rejoices in it.
Wow.
That brings me great joy.
Oh my gosh, that gives me the chills. I mean, what an absolute superstar she is. And I'm sure you talk to her. You probably call her every morning, don't you? Every night, every morning?
I talk to my mother twice a day. I do.
love it.
Yeah, every
I
morning.
love it. Mama J,
And
I do the same thing, girl. I love that. That is cool.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good. Well, I'll be thinking about your mom. I hope she stays as vibrant. That's awesome. So, we call our show Game Changers. And so my last question today is sort of, to me, game changers are people in your life that are doing things maybe a little bit differently, but in an awesome, authentic, real way in the world and making an impact, right? They're inspiring others, they're leading, and most likely, I think, oftentimes serving others. Who is someone like that in your life that inspires you, and why?
So there's probably lots of those. I will tell you, most recently, because I just got back from Africa, there is, other than my little girl Sylvia, who's there, who is so bright and shining, and just, it's so great to see that I've helped in some small way to change somebody's life and to save her life. It's amazing. There's a woman named Mama Mercy that we met in the slums there of Mathare in Nairobi, and wow, this is a woman who was an accountant in Nairobi and left her job, moved into the slums to begin to take care of all of these orphan children and babies that were just being left. And this woman, changed my life in terms of somebody who could inspire other people, because she was so full of joy and so full of faith in God and what she's doing, and so incredibly powerful and joyful. And she's living in a slum in a kitchen that has a wet, dirty dirt floor, and is stirring this big pot of stew of beans and rice or whatever to feed 300 people. I was just like blown away by her resilience as a human being. So other than my mom, seeing people like that who rise above and give themselves, here's the quote for you, and I'll stop at this. She has a quote on her wall that says, "Good people burn themselves as candles to provide light for others."
Wow.
And I was like, wow, if she ever was a person who was living that out as an example, it was intense. And what she's doing in the slums of Mathare is incredible. Incredible.
Mama Mercy. That is an awesome quote. And what a woman golly. Well, Mama J, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. And oh my gosh, your success is clearly not an accident. Your honesty, your authenticity is inspiring. Your humility is awesome. And, what you have done and continue to do for so many people in your space as a coach is just awesome. But it's obvious why you're real. And
I thank you for that. But let me also say equally, I am so appreciative of you and certainly the trail that you've blazed. You have to know that my respect is mutual where you're concerned. So thank you for including me, and just for for all the things that you're saying. They're equal to you. So just know that.
Well, you're kind. Thank you, Mama J, so much for coming on. You're the best. I appreciate it.
All right. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks, as always, for listening to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. There you can listen to previous episodes and leave us a review, which helps other people find out about the show. For more about me, visit mollyfletcher.com. Until next time, stay curious and be bold.